I thought I would make a video today, and as you can see, it's really not much of a video, it's just a blank screen with a talking voice. Kind of old school, like a old time radio talk show back in the day. It would be interesting to time travel back to the day of radio, just exclusively radio, where that's where people, got their information. And then prior to that, of course, I guess newspapers and word of mouth. And then came the time of TV and what around the 50s, the first televisions came out. And then from there on to the internet age. I was born in 1968 and I grew up in the 70s and 80s. And when I was a young kiddo, I recall the first Apple computers being sold. Not really understanding what any of that meant in terms of where it was all going. I mean, we didn't have that kind of foresight. We just saw computers. Oh, here's a computer. And then people started using computers to type documents as opposed to using a typewriter. And you got a nice printer to go with your Apple II or your IBM. My stepfather bought an IBM computer. He was always a little bit of the rebellious type. Instead of getting the Apple, he got the IBM. Remember the lyrics of the Styx song, the Mr. Roboto? His blood is boiling, his heart is human, and his brain is IBM. An interesting song when you look back on it. Of course, when that song came out around 1982, it didn't dawn on me even what that song was about. But looking back now, it's all pretty interesting, I guess you could say, as a lot of things are when you look back on the past and you remember these things being out there, but really not understanding the totality of what any of it meant. When Mr. Roboto came out and it was a hit on the radio, I mean, it just had a good beat to it, had a good beat. Styx was popular at that time, and that song had a lot of popularity, but we couldn't have known what that really meant. My heart is human, my blood is boiling, my brain is IBM. My brain is IBM. I mean, what the hell's that? And so it was just kind of a fun little song we listened to. Had a good, like I said, it had a nice beat to it, and then you fast forward to the 90s and you have the first cell phones. And there were cell phones prior to that. They were just not in the hands of most people. Some people, like my stepfather, who always had to have the next thing, he had a cell phone, and he carried it around in this pack, this big thing, this I don't know what you call it, this thing he carried it in, and it was primarily for just people who wanted to investigate what this technology was about. And like I said, most people didn't have anything like that. A few did. And then by the mid 90s or something, you have more and more people getting cell phones. I think I got my first cell phone around 1996. And I sent my first text message perhaps maybe 10 years after that. I mean, I was like one of those people that was like, I'm not texting, I'm not using that. And then before you know it, you're assimilated, right? Which is that's generally, how it is. You may think, oh, I'm not participating in this. Oh, yes, you are. Because that's where it all went. Everybody started texting and then email came in around. I remember email before that. Became more and more of a way to communicate. And then we just go on from there. It's all pretty interesting when you just look back on it. And I do that often. I reflect on things like that, things I've seen in the past. I haven't forgotten anything. I have a memory that stretches back to the time that I was pretty young, maybe 3 or 4. Yeah, I could remember back that far, and then after that, everything has been a timeline, like a timeline in my mind. I could tell you exactly what happened just about every year that went by. And my mom, when I was younger, I lost my father when I was 4 years old, and I don't really recall that. That was a traumatic experience, and perhaps it's best that I don't remember that. But after that, my mom wanted me to be educated, so she got encyclopedias and these world books. She bought the World Book encyclopedias, and I would read those. And she bought these other books that went along with that series, and yearbooks. Every year we got this yearbook of yearbook 1977 or whatever, and you could see all of the technology that had taken place during that year, or what farming techniques maybe they used that were coming in, just whatever trivial information was available. And as a kid, I looked at it and I thought, wow, I mean, this is one kind of world we got going on here. It's just going to be great the way things are going. And just look at it. I mean, we can see into outer space, and we sent remember the Pioneer satellites and Voyager, Pioneer, this and that, Pioneer and Voyager 1 and 2. I can't remember what the Pioneer satellites were about, and they sent the Voyager satellites out into space, which just and now they're billions and billions of miles away, maybe trillions, who knows. And supposedly we've lost touch with them, and then the computer fires back up and out there in interstellar space somewhere and communicates back with us. Yeah, that's pretty funny when you consider that even today in 2026, you can go down to, let's say, Palo Duro Canyon and lose cell phone reception. You can go in various places and lose cell phone reception. Yet the Voyager satellite out there, who's billions of miles away, somehow still communicates. I haven't figured that one out. Maybe it's an interdimensional thing. Yeah, maybe that's it. But just the absurdity now of looking back at the past and what I thought would be the future definitely didn't turn out to be the future. The technology has been used by elites or people in positions of power to dominate other people. instead of this, utopia of people working together and using this technology to create some wonderful civilization and wonderful, like the Jetsons. We were going to be the Jetsons. Or remember Back to the Future, where Doc comes back in the DeLorean after he blasts off to another dimension. He finally got the 1.21 gigawatts of energy from the uranium or whatever was required to do the time travel, and he blasted off into the future, and then he came back and his DeLorean wasn't even using gasoline and rubber tires. It was it was like some sort of a thing from the you was floating, and you could blast off into another dimension. And you were, as a young kid in 1984 when that show came out, you were led to believe that, man, that the future, boy, that's going to be something. And we actually believed that. I mean, like, one day there would be no roads. Remember, he said roads. Who needs roads? Well, in 2026, we still need roads. We need combustible engines and tires and same stuff we needed back in the 70s. I mean, nothing's really changed. The electronics in the cars have just become more fancy, and of course, your vehicle probably has to go to the shop more often because the electronics are screwed up in it. The computer chips fail or whatever. It's not just a engine with an air conditioner and a radio. And, so in so many ways, things have not only not advanced, they have actually devolved. And, it's just amazing to me. But, what was the point of this video? I've been, of course, watching world events and taking it all in with a grain of salt. And I see so many people upset about, some of the things that are going on in the world, particularly with what is going on with the Iran situation and people dissecting that whole thing, and of course, America has been at war with whoever for my entire life. I was born pretty much in the middle of the Vietnam conflict. And then from there, we never really got into another major war. I mean, there was Middle Eastern wars, of course, throughout the 70s, and those things going on. The next big war, I suppose would be Desert Storm in 91, and then you had another invasion of Iraq in 2003, and so it's always been something. And now you have this attack on Iran, another war, and it may be the last straw for the United States. I don't know. I mean, the United States has been at war for so long, and for a purpose. I mean, whoever established this country, the elites, you could say the founding fathers, whatever, whoever established this country did so for a reason, to use it primarily as a battering ram. And what happens when you have used it all up? There's nothing left to be used, and it's used up. Perhaps this is the last bridge. You ever remember the show A Bridge Too Far? Back in the day, I remember that as a kid. Well, maybe this is the last bridge for the United States. I don't know. I mean, it looks like that America has effectively alienated itself from its allies, and it could be the final stage for the United States for this country. And then what? I don't know. The Great Fall. I really don't know. How many countries can you invade to prop up the dollar? How many wars can you wage to keep people on the dollar system? I mean, that's a good question. I don't know. I've been watching this for a long time. It looks like to me, though, that perhaps a new order is emerging, which of course is just another version of the old order, right? I mean, and from what I can tell, it's always going to be this way because it goes beyond just countries and borders, and it goes further than that. It goes deeper than that. And I guess you could go back thousands of years, go back to the ancient writings of the Gnostics. And they found texts in Egypt, and it's called the Nag Hammadi Library, where these Gnostic texts have been preserved. I guess they were found in Egypt, and by a farmer out in a field in some clay jars, and then somebody interpreted them, and it has a very interesting depiction about how all of this mess got started. And that's not what I want to get into today, but it is interesting because when you look at the world through a Gnostic perspective, you begin to see it way, way different than most people, understanding that there is truly something else going on that's pulling the strings of this dimension. And perhaps, at least according to Gnostics, and not just Gnostics, there are other mystical religions or whatever that have pointed to this idea that the collective consciousness of humanity is kind of trapped by this benevolent force out there that, or should I say this malevolent force, not benevolent, a malevolent sort of evil force that has entrapped human consciousness. And that's why we're really never able to effectively get anywhere. Voting isn't going to work, obviously. That's people are like, well, you should vote. Well, no, that's not going to work. Because what controls all of that is far more powerful than voting. And besides that, all of the politicians and all the world leaders are under the influence of the demiurge. And so that's not going to work. So therefore, what might work? Well, it appears that, of course, going back to Gnostic thinking, that people will have to have a aha moment and realize that they are divine sparks trapped in these meat suits, and each soul will have its own reckoning in terms of awakening and understanding what its true origin is, where it's from. If you have a soul, in Gnostic thinking, not everybody did. Not everybody has a soul, or not everybody is even capable of awakening. You have hylics, psychics, and pneumatics. The pneumatics are the small the small group or small in number spirited types that are even capable of awakening. And if you're resonating with any of this, you're probably one of them. Psychics may have the ability to awaken, but they're still entrapped in that thinking of religion or politics, the things that they have been brainwashed with. And until they break free of all of the mind control and the brainwashing, then they're not going to be able to awaken. And as far as the Hylics, no hope for them. They're truly just the cattle. Maybe they're just like expendable, non-spirited entities or something. I don't know. But I encounter those on a regular basis, and those are the types that truly just believe in this system. They're totally sold out to them, totally sold out to everything, about this system. And they're just completely conformists. They don't think about anything but serving the system, being in the system. They think about their ego all day long. Who am I in this world? And, how can I get more power or influence or money or just all the things? They're very materialistic, think nothing about tossing other people under the bus to get what they want. Those are the Hylics, and no hope for them. But for you pneumatics out there, I think that's where the real change is going to have to occur, if there's going to be any change at all. This concept of a new earth, or a new type of spirit man that evolves will have to come from the awakening of the people who have the divine spark. And I know that sounds kind of crazy, but if you look into some of these things, you'll find that might resonate, because nothing else is going to work. You're not going to vote for the next person. They're not going to fix anything. Those people are all compromised. They're all minions of the demiurge. They're doing the bidding of the entities, whatever, that are in control of this reality. Well, anyway, I thought I would just throw these things out there. It's taken me a long time to figure out some things in life, and to just come to realizations about some things. I'll just leave it at that. I'm going to go have another cup of coffee, and I still live in this reality. I still have to work. I still have to pay bills. I'm not a billionaire. But I thought I might throw something out there that's worth listening to. Maybe it's not. Who knows? I'll just leave it at that. Have a good day.